Next up is residual hauntings, and I'm gonna bet that a lot of you are really familiar with these, whether personally or having seen them on a ghost show somewhere or something like that. So what are residual hauntings? That is when an energy, it doesn't necessarily get stuck, but it does repeat itself. So it's kind of like, it could be a kind of thought form energy was created from a happening that happened in a very specific location. And sometimes it was so strong that we actually see what happens again. Sometimes it's even so strong that it's even on our timeline. You can actually see it replay itself at the same time every day. How are they created? It's either going to be routine, somebody gets up, they take a shower, they go to work, you may hear keys, you may see a doorknob, turn a little bit or something like that. Or as I mentioned before, they can also be a matter of something very large happening. Doesn't always have to be bad or traumatic, but something very large happening, and it just sort of keeps replaying itself through that kind of thought form energy that's created around it. All right, so here is a story time for you. This is a house that is on, it's on 6th and Chestnut out here in Wilmington. Two of my friends used to live there, and the residual haunting there was exactly on time. 7 a.m. every day. They heard somebody climbing the stairs and then walking into a room. It was actually a duplex that they lived in. And so the ghost would walk through a room and then walk through a wall and then assumably go to the other part of the house. It didn't always used to be a duplex, and so that's why the spirit was able to walk through. Now, was this spirit somebody that they could necessarily talk to? That particular one, no. Though there were others in the house that they could. So that even also lends itself to say, even if a spirit has an ongoing routine, sure, there is that possibility that you're able to speak with them, but if it's more of a non-sentient sort of haunting, it's like calling out, and it's like calling out at your TV. It's only going to do so good. So understand there are different levels of, is that energy able to speak with you, or is it simply energy that's replaying itself? And remember, if it's just an energy that's replaying itself, think of it more like a thought form spirit. You can break that energy up, especially if it's not serving your household well, and just sort of release it elsewhere. Here is another kind of residual energy, but this one, it was as sentient as it wasn't, okay? So this is something that clairaudient people have sometimes had happen to them and can also sometimes show up on a spirit box. So this particular example happened, it was based out of 1898 here in Wilmington. If you're not familiar with what happened in 1898 in Wilmington, please look it up. It's a very important part of American history for us to understand in order to grow and heal from. It was a forcible takeover of the government, and it's never been righted since then. So in this particular case, the house that two of my friends were living in, there was an alderman that lived there. He had been properly elected by the people, and this white mob pretty much forced him to resign. They stormed his house, they surrounded his home. He was terrified for his family. And so here's where the residual energy comes into play. I'm in the understanding that his soul was not in that house. He actually left town, and from my understanding, he never came back. And the residual energy, because there was so much around it when he was being forced to resign, it's that energy that remained. So just like what my friends eventually found on the spirit box when they had a short spirit box session, it so happened that their session was around the same time that this man was forced to resign, so maybe that has something to do with it. Though, once again, similarly with clairaudience, they will sometimes pick up on words like this. So for example, the words that they got were mob, force, me, force, sign, gone, danger. So that could be the hint of a sentient energy, perhaps if they're trying to tell the story. But if it's just words coming on loop, that lends itself more to be like a thought form energy. So sure, you can still learn from that, and you can still break it up, remember, though it's not always going to be something you can necessarily have an ongoing conversation with, or even feel the need that you need to move some kind of being on and let them know that time has changed. Just understand it's energy. You can break it up, you can remove it. So is residual energy bad? Not necessarily. So, sure, if it's something that is disrupting the peace in your household, once again, break it up, simply move it out. Though sometimes residual energy can just be smelling bacon in the morning. Sometimes residual energy is just smelling the smell of somebody's perfume when they're around. Sometimes residual energy is just sort of there. So long as you understand what it is, you don't need to be afraid of it. If you see somebody walking up the stairs every time at the same time during the day, is that something to be afraid of? Well, if you are, remember you can do something about it. But otherwise, if you just simply understand that is the energy, it's been the same way for however many hundreds of years, nobody's trapped there, it's just a memory that replays itself, then really it's fine, so long as you are fine.